Hey guys, your homework should already be turned in and you guys should have already graded that. Go ahead and take this half sheet warm-up and glue that in your journal, and if you haven't finished this warm-up, I'll give you a couple more minutes before we start going over it. What you're doing here is telling me who is correct and why. So Madison's work and Caleb's work is shown below, and they are told to solve for y, which means they're changing our standard form equation into slope-intercept form. So at the bottom it says each student's work is shown. Go ahead and tell me who is correct and why. Give you another minute or so and then we'll start going over it. Okay, looking at both Madison and Caleb's work, okay, they wrote the standard form first, and what they want to do again is try to get y by itself. So I would have written y equals mx plus b and y equals mx plus b. So the first thing that they should have done was move the x, which they did here, Madison did, minus 6x minus 6x minus 6x minus 6x, and they end up getting the same exact equation, negative 4y equals negative 6x plus 24. The next step is to get 1y, because again we want y equals mx plus b. So Madison divided by negative 4 on the left side and then also on the right. Caleb divided by positive 4 on the left side and the right. So that's the point where they actually did a different step. So who's correct and why? Okay, you should have said that Madison's work is correct. Okay, why is Madison's work correct? Because when you divide negative 4 by negative 4, you get a positive 1y. If I divided negative 4 by positive 4, I would get a negative y, negative 1y. So that's why it's incorrect. We always want to divide by the whole entire coefficient. In this case, it'd be negative 4 on both sides. Okay? So again, you could have explained it however you'd like. But again, that was just a review from yesterday with converting standard form to slope-intercept form. Okay, we're going to continue with standard form today. There's a little bit more to it and what it can tell us. So on the next page in your journal, go ahead and head it 3-5, standard form. And we use standard form to really figure out the x and the y-intercept quite easily as well. Today's October 18th. Go ahead and put your page number in the top right corner and also in your table of contents. We'll give you a couple minutes to do that and then we'll begin. So like I said, standard form is a great way to find the intercepts, the x and the y-intercepts on any linear equation. We talked about point-slope form is easy to write an equation when you're given the point and a slope. Standard form again is just an easier way of finding those intercepts. So with standard form, we are going to find the x and the y-intercepts. Okay, so let's discuss both of them. How would you describe the y-intercept? Go ahead and define it for me. What would you put as a definition of the y-intercept? Okay, I would define that as the y-intercept is the point where the line crosses the y-axis. And we're going to draw a picture in a second with both the y-intercepts and the x-intercept. But again, the x-intercept is where it crosses over the y-axis. It intercepts the y-axis. That's why it's called the y-intercept. Okay, our x-intercept is pretty much the same thing, but we also call it the zeros. I need you to write that down. We talked about that when we defined all the parts of a graph a couple weeks ago. But x-intercepts are the same thing as zeros. So whenever they say find the zeros, you need to know that's the x-intercept. Again, a good definition is just the point where the line crosses the x-axis. Okay, again, x-intercept or zeros are where they cross over the x-axis. I'm going to go ahead and highlight those for our definitions. And let's draw a picture just so we have one available to look back at. So I'm going to go ahead and draw just in the 4 quadrants. Just make a couple dash marks. Okay, if I wanted to identify an y-intercept, I'm just going to put a dot on the y-axis, and the x-intercept I'll put a dot on the x-axis. Okay, so when I actually connect those 2 points, makes our linear line, or linear equation, and I know that the linear equation crosses over the y-axis at this point, and the x-axis at this point. So along with our picture, let's label it. Again, since this is the point that crosses over the y-axis, this is our y-intercept. And we can really write the y-intercept 2 ways. Sometimes it's just labeled. The y-intercept here would be -2. But most of the time, they give it to us as an ordered pair. So what is the ordered pair for this point? Okay, this would actually be 0, -2. Notice the y-intercept is always going to be a number, and the x will always be a 0. So this is my x, this is my y, this will always be a 0, this will always be a number when it comes to the y-intercept. So when we look at our table on our calculator, we're always, whenever we want to find the y-intercept, we look when x is 0, and what's that y value. Okay, and then this point, where the line crosses the x-axis, is called our x-intercept, or our 0. Again, we can write that as x-intercept is just a +3. Or we can write that as an ordered pair. So since it's the x-intercept, the x value is 3, the y value is 0. Again, with the x-intercept, we're always going to have the number that it crosses over as the x value and 0 as the y value. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. When it comes to our x-intercept, it's always the number, 0. When it comes to the y-intercept, it's always going to be 0, the number. When we write it as an ordered pair. So knowing from a graph how to identify what's what, the x-intercept and the y-intercept, is important, but that seems fairly easy to do. Okay, what we're going to look at now is I'm going to give you an equation, and there's going to be a couple different ways that we can find the x and the y-intercept. So what you're going to do is, we're done with our notebooks for right now, so put that off to the side. And what you're going to be getting is this paper that says the y-intercepts and the x-intercepts are 0s. I don't know what happened to the rest of the parentheses there. And we're going to take notes on this, so I'll give you a second to get that handed out, and then we'll start discussing it. Okay, so from an equation, we need to be able to identify the x and the y-intercept. And again, this is from our standard form equations. So there's actually 3 ways that we could actually find this. So I'm going to teach you all 3 ways, and then you get to decide whichever way works best for you, or maybe 2 ways that work best for you, that you will use to solve for the x and the y-intercept. So let's talk about option 1 first. Okay, option 1, I give you standard form. We're going to change the standard form to slope-intercept form. Okay, from there, we're going to graph it in our calculator, and then we're going to look at our table. So pretty much, again, we're converting it to slope-intercept form because we're going to plug in our calculator. We can look at the graph, or we can look at the table to figure out what the intercepts are. So let's go for it. So y equals mx plus b. So the first thing I want to do here is move my x. So I'm going to add 4x on both sides and rewrite what I have. I have 2y is equal to 4x minus 20. Okay, the next step is, again, I want y equals mx plus b, so I have to get rid of this 2 because I want 1y. So I'm going to divide by 2 on the left. and I'm going to divide by 2 on the right. Since I divided the whole right side by 2, I'm going to rewrite what I have. I have y equals 4x divided by 2 is 2x, and negative 20 divided by 2 is negative 10. Y equals mx plus b. Okay, so that's my equation. So from here I have to identify my x-intercept, or my 0, and my y-intercept. Now, since it's already in y equals mx plus b, I already know one of those. Which one do I know? The x or the y-intercept? Okay, you should have said the y-intercept, because remember, when it's in y equals mx plus b, the b part is our y-intercept. So negative 10 is going to be our y-intercept. Now if I wrote that as an ordered pair, what would that be? 0, comma, negative 10, because the y value is the number, and then 0 is the x value. Now how do we find the x-intercept? Well, again, this method right here is we're going to use our calculator. So I'm going to go ahead and write x-intercept, and then we're going to use our calculator to figure it out. So on your calculator, turn it on. What we're going to do is go to your y equals button, and we're going to enter in our equation. So I'm going to enter in 2x minus 10, and I'm going to go ahead and graph it. So here's my function. Okay, now it looks, again, our y-intercept's negative 10. Now I can look and see it probably crosses over at negative 10. If I just look at the graph, what number does it look like the x-intercept is? It almost looks like it's hitting 5, but let's be sure. So another way that we can double check this is that just by looking at the graph or looking at our table. So push your second button and push the graph button. That will bring us to the table. So again, there's our y-intercept when x is 0. That's our y-intercept. Now we're looking for when the y is 0. What's the x-intercept? In this case, it would be 5. Okay, so the x-intercept here is 5. And as an ordered pair, I would write that as 5, comma, 0. Okay, so that's the first option on converting any standard form to slope-intercept form to figure out what the y and the x-intercepts are. Let's look at option 2. Okay, option 2, it says change standard form to slope-intercept form, so we're going to do the same thing we just did. Okay, in slope-intercept form, your b is the y-intercept, which that's again what we just did. And then the last step is we're plugging in 0 for y to find the x-intercept. So we're not using our calculator here. Calculator is just an easy way to check. And what we're going to do is plug in 0 for y to find the x-intercept. Highlight that for me. Now why would we plug in 0 for y to find the x-intercept? Okay, remember, if I look back up here, the x-intercept was 5, 0. The y value here is 0. So if I plug in 0 for the y value and I solve, it's going to give me the x-intercept. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve this. So again, step 1, we want to convert this to slope-intercept form. So it's going to look exactly the way it did up here. I'm going to add 4x to both sides. I'm going to rewrite what I have. 2y is equal to 4x minus 20. Divide by 2 each side. So I end up getting y is equal to 4 divided by 2 would be 2x. Negative 20 divided by 2 is negative 10. So again, I should have got the same thing up here. It's the same problem. Okay, we know from our equation, step 2 said, well, if it's in slope-intercept form, the b is the y-intercept. So I'm going to go ahead and write that's the y-intercept. And now to figure out the x-intercept, again, the x-intercept always has a y value of 0. So in my equation where I have y is equal to 2x minus 10, if I want the x-intercept, we're going to plug in 0 for y. So I'm going to plug in 0 there, and I'm going to solve for x. So what would be my first step here to get x by itself? I'm going to get this minus 10 on the other side, so I'm going to add 10 to both sides. So I end up having 10 is equal to 2x. And to get x by itself, I divide by the coefficient on both sides, so I end up getting x is equal to 5, which would be my x-intercept. So the x-intercept here is 5. Okay, so that's the second way. That's without a calculator. Say your calculator broke, you didn't know what to do, that's one way. Change it to slope-intercept form. The b is the y-intercept, and then we just plug in 0 for y. Okay, option 3 is we don't have to convert it at all. We're going to keep it actually as standard form. And what we're going to do is if we want to find the y, or the x-intercept, we're going to plug in 0 for y and solve. If we want to find the y-intercept, we just plug in 0 for x. And again, that goes back to up here, where if I want the y-intercept, I know the y value is going to be a number, the x is 0. So you plug in 0 for the opposite one that you want. So again, let's find the x-intercept first. So since I'm finding the x-intercept, I'm going to plug in 0 for y. So I'm going to recopy negative 4x plus 2 times 0 equals negative 20. I'm finding the x-intercept, so I plug in 0 for y. And I'm going to solve. Well, anything that's multiplied by 0 cancels out. So I'm left over with negative 4x is equal to negative 20. Divide by negative 4 on both sides. And I end up getting the x-intercept is what? Negative 20 divided by negative 4 is a positive 5. Simple as that. Okay, now let's try the next one. If I want to find the y-intercept, I'm going to plug in 0 for x. So it should be negative 4 times 0 plus 2y is equal to negative 20. Well, anything times 0 cancels out. So I'm left over with 2y is equal to negative 20. Divide by 2 on both sides. And I end up getting that the y-intercept is negative 20 divided by 2, which would be negative 10. Okay, so this third way really focuses on keeping standard form, finding the intercepts. That's why standard form is a really easy way to figure out the x and the y-intercept, is because you just plug in 0 for the opposite one to find the x or the y-intercept. Okay, the other ones, if we convert them, we can use our calculator and double check, but that's the reason why we have that standard form. It's the easiest way. But again, you have 3 options. Option 1 was, again, change it to slope-intercept form, graph in your calculator and check. Option 2 is change it to slope-intercept form. We know y-intercept, and then we're going to plug in 0 for y to find the x-intercept. And then the last way was just plugging in 0 for the y value if we want the x-intercept, and plugging in 0 for the x value if we want the y-intercept. Okay, so let's look at some word problems now just to get some more practice. I want you to look on the other side. And let's look and see what they want us to do. It says, find the intercepts of 2x plus 3y equals 6 by following the steps below. So they're going to give us a couple ways of doing this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight the equation. The method that they want us to do is they want to substitute y with 0 for the equation to solve for x. So we're finding the x-intercept here because we're plugging in 0 for y. So at the top we have a little bit of room. But I'm going to plug in 0 for y. So I have 2x plus 3 times 0 equals 6. Again, 3 times 0 will always cancel out. So that leaves me with 2x is equal to 6. Divide by 2 on both sides, and I get x is equal to 3. So I'm going to put that for A. X is equal to 3. Which means my x-intercept is 3, 0. The x value is the number we found, and the y value here is 0. So I'm going to go ahead and graph that. The x-intercept crosses over the x-axis at 3. Go ahead and do C and D by yourself. So C wants you to find the y-intercept by plugging in 0 for x, and tell me what the y-intercept is now. Give you a couple minutes to do that, and then when everyone's ready, we'll push play. So if you look at my work up here, I plugged in 0 for x. That canceled out, so I have 3y is equal to 6. Divide by the coefficient of 3. Y was 2. So my y-intercept here is x is 0 when y is 2. And I'm going to go ahead and label that there. And I'm going to draw a line to connect. Okay, that right there shows me my x and my y-intercept for an equation that looks like that. It has a negative slope because it goes down from left to right. And then let's look at what E says. It says, use the intercepts to graph the line described by the equation. Well, that's exactly what we did. And that's all we're going to do. Very good job. Okay, the next one says, Jennifer started with $50 in her savings account. Each week she withdrew $10. The amount of money in her savings account after X weeks is represented by this function. So this is the equation for what describes Jennifer's situation. She started with $50, and then each week she withdrew, so she took away $10 each week. We want to find the intercepts and graph the function. So the first thing that we can do is identify one of the intercepts. What form is this equation in? Okay, this is in slope-intercept form. So we don't need to do anything to figure out the y-intercept. What here is the y-intercept? Okay, the y-intercept here would be the 50. So if I look at the y-axis where it talks about savings, I'm going to put a dot on the 50. That's her beginning starting point. She has $50 in her savings account, and that's where she's going to start. Now if I wrote that as an ordered pair, again it would be 0, 50. The next thing we're going to have to do is tell me, what does that represent? So since we're looking at savings and weeks, what does this point actually represent with regards to savings in weeks? Remember, this is my x and this is my y. Okay, one thing you could have said is she started off with $50 in her savings account. Okay, now this point means at 0 weeks, because that's where she started, you put she has $50. Okay, that's what this point represents. At 0 weeks, which represents our x value, she has $50 in her savings account. So now let's find the x-intercept. So, if I know this is my slope-intercept form, I have y is equal to 50 minus 10x. I want to find the x-intercept now. We already know the y-intercept because it's in that formula. So if I want the x-intercept, what do I do? Okay, I can plug in 0 for the y. Okay, that's what I'm probably going to have to do. That's the easiest thing. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in 0 for y. So I plug in 0 there. I have 50 minus 10x, and I'm going to solve for the x. So I'm going to subtract 50 on both sides, which leaves me with negative 50 is equal to negative 10x. From there, I'm going to divide by negative 10 on both sides. And I end up getting that the x-intercept is a positive 5. Okay, so again, at week 5, that's where it's going to be the x-intercept. So if I connect these points, that's about the rate that she's going to be depositing money. So if I put that here, the x-intercept is 5, which is 5, 0. And what does this represent? This is my x value, this is my y. What does the x-intercept represent? Again, x represents weeks, so you could say at 5 weeks, how much money, how much is in her savings account? Well, it would be 0. So she ran out of money in 5 weeks. She has no money. Okay, so you're going to have to identify what those actual intercepts represent. But again, write them as ordered pairs, and then you're going to be able to use the labels on the x and the y axis to figure that out. Okay, let's look at the last question. And what it's asking us to do is write an equation in standard form from the word problem. So it says, at a fair, hamburgers sell for $3 each and hot dogs sell for $1.50 each. Write an equation that describes the number of hamburgers and hot dogs a family can buy with $30. So again, we want to write this in standard form, which is our x plus by is equal to c. So we need to identify two variables here, my x and my y. What are the two things that we're discussing or purchasing here? Okay, the first thing is hamburgers are $3 each. So let's say, we'll say x are the hamburgers. And hot dogs are $1.50 each. So we'll say y are the hot dogs. Go ahead and write an equation in standard form based off the information they give you. See if you can do that. Okay, if you got this as your answer, okay, it was $3 each hamburger, so 3 times x plus $1.50 times each hot dog, and the total amount of money that they have to spend is $30. That's your standard form right there. I have $3 per hamburger plus $1.50 per hot dog, and the most that we have is $30. Okay, that's all. We're not going to convert that because it's not asking us to find anything else for right now, but again, we're going to eventually get into those standard form word problems and solving for one of those variables. Very good. So what I want you to do is, since your notes, we only use about a half a page, what I want you to do is I'm going to fold this in half, and I'm probably going to fold it again just so I can glue it in to the bottom of the page that we just started. So it's going to almost look like this. Glue that in, and then I'll discuss what your assignment will be. Okay, once you have that glued in, you can put that aside, but you're going to need that to refer back to for your assignment. You will need a separate piece of paper out, so go ahead and head that separate piece of paper while someone in your class will hand out to you the assignment. And the assignment looks like this, where it's 3-5. Put your name at the top, and then I'll discuss what I want you to do. Okay, so looking at number 1 through 4, it says find the x and y intercepts and the slope of the graph of each equation. So we have to find the x-intercept, the y-intercept, and the slope for the first 4. Number 5 and 6, draw a line when they're given the intercept. So all you have to do is plot the intercepts and draw a line. Same thing with 7 and 8. Tell me what the x and the y intercepts, 7, 8, and 9. Tell me what the x and the y intercepts are. I also want you to write this off to the side and put right as ordered pairs. So it should be, x comma y. Okay, so all of your answers for 7, 8, and 9 should be written as ordered pairs, which are x comma y. .10 through 13, you're telling me if it's a horizontal or vertical line for 10 and 11. And then 12 and 13, you're writing an equation for the horizontal and vertical line. Look back in your notes over the types of slopes to help you. On the back, 18 through 21, you're going to write each equation in standard form, so you're going to have to convert those to standard form. And then the rest are self-explanatory with reading directions and solving. So let's do number 1 together, and then I'll let you begin and start working on it for the rest of the time. Okay, so number 1, again, we want to find the x and the y intercepts and find the slope. So the first thing I'm going to do is write the equation. X plus y is equal to -3. Now remember, I gave you 3 different ways of finding the x and the y intercept. I'm going to use method 3 here, so if you want to keep your notes out to look at that, you can. But again, if I want to find the x intercept, okay, I'm going to plug in 0 for y. So I have x plus 0 equals -3. So when I actually solve that, x plus 0 would just be x is equal to -3. So my x-intercept here is -3. If I wanted to find the y-intercept, I plug in 0 for x. So I have 0 plus y is equal to -3. Well, 0 plus y is y equals -3. So the x and the y-intercept here are both 3. I'm going to highlight those two. And then the last thing I need to find is the slope. So I have my equation. One way that I can find the slope is just convert it to y equals mx plus b. So one way I could do that, again, if you want to write at the top y equals mx plus b, that will help you identify what it is. I need to get the x on this side, so I'm going to subtract x on both sides, and I end up having y is equal to -x minus 3. That's my equation. So the slope here is going to be what? There's really a -1 in front, so it should be just -1 over 1. Okay, so that's what I needed to solve for number 1. So once I have those 3 answers for number 1, I'm going to write them down. I'm going to put the x-intercept here is -3. The y-intercept here is -3. And the slope here is -1 over 1. Okay, so I'm going to write all 3 of those things for number 1. So you're going to have a couple, not enough room, but you'll be fine. Okay, and then the rest is self-explanatory. You just went over everything. Make sure when you're finished with this, if you finish before time's up, which you shouldn't be, you can turn in the tray. If not, it will be your homework, so make sure you complete that and it will be graded the next class period. Okay, have a great day and we'll see you later.